Eala makes it to the second round of the Madrid Open. What a professional, mature performance that was against one of the world's best ever in former world number 11, Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova. This time a qualifier, and she moves past the 34-year-old in some style. It's brilliant from Eala once again.
This wasn't a tennis match. It was a statement. Eala didn't just beat Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova at the Madrid Open, she dismantled her. She walked onto the red clay of the Anastasia Sanchez Stadium, stared down a former French Open finalist, and handed her a cold, ruthless straight sets beating, 6-3, 6-3. No drama. No nerves. Just surgical destruction. Mabuhay, tennis fans, and welcome back to Viant Locks, the undisputed home of Philippine tennis pride. Stop whatever you're doing right now, sit down, and brace yourselves, because we are not simply talking about a tennis match today. We are talking about an absolute massacre on the red clay of Madrid. We are talking about a paradigm shift in women's tennis. Eala did not just defeat Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova, she dismantled her, humiliated a former French Open finalist, and handed her a straight sets beatdown that the entire tennis world will be talking about for weeks. And let's be crystal clear about who Alex was facing, because this result only gets more impressive the closer you look. Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova isn't some journeywoman filler. She's a battle-hardened Russian veteran who lives on European clay. She had clawed through qualifying rounds, arriving fully warmed up, match-tough, and completely dialed into the high altitude and the heavy, high-bouncing Madrid dirt. She came in hungry, a wounded lioness desperate for blood. And instead of finding a nervous, wide-eyed teenager on the other side of the net, she ran face-first into an unbreakable wall of Filipino resilience. The odds-makers were skeptical. The pundits pointed to the glaring experience gap. They talked endlessly about the Russian veteran's bone-crushing ground strokes and her deep runs at Roland Garros. They fully expected Alex to be overwhelmed by the gravity of the occasion, the altitude of the Spanish capital, and the sheer suffocating weight of her opponent's game. But the official statistics tell a completely different story, and when you break these numbers down, they are enough to send a cold shiver down the spine of every player left in this draw. Let's start with the absolute foundation of this historic victory, the serve. Every great tennis performance is built on it, and today Eala delivered a serving masterclass that belongs in a coaching textbook. Alex landed a jaw-dropping 70% of her first serves. 70%. Let that breathe for a second. Against a hyper-aggressive, power-hitting returner like Pavlyuchenkova, your first serve is your armor. Miss it consistently and you're handing a loaded weapon to a player who knows exactly how to pull the trigger. Alex didn't miss. She stepped up to that baseline with ice water in her veins, over and over again, neutralizing the Russians' return game before the rallies even had a chance to begin. But landing the serve is only half the story. What you do after it lands, that's what separates the solid professionals from the true elite. And here's where the data gets genuinely jaw-dropping. When Alex got her first serve in play, she won a staggering 76% of those points. 3 out of every 4 times. She was dictating the tempo, pushing Pavlyuchenkova around the court at will, and finishing rallies entirely on her own terms. She was, in a word, unplayable. Now flip the script and look at what was happening on the Russian side of the net, because the contrast is absolutely brutal. Pavlyuchenkova, globally respected for her raw explosive power, managed to win just 50% of her own first serve points. 1 in 2. Alex was reading her serve like a first-grade picture book, stepping inside the baseline, absorbing the pace, and firing it back with devastating precision. The Filipina racked up 26 receiving points over the course of this match, suffocating the Russians' rhythm and quietly dismantling her confidence with every single return. And that relentless pressure completely fractured the Russians' mental game, which brings us to the most telling metric in all of professional tennis, the break points. This is where we find out what a player is truly made of, where raw talent meets iron nerve. Pavlyuchenkova is a seasoned fighter, and even while being outclassed, she carved out 6 breakpoint opportunities against Alex throughout this tense match. 6 separate moments where the momentum could have swung, where the veteran could have clawed her way back into the contest. Do you know how many she actually converted? 1. Just 1 solitary break of serve out of 6 desperate attempts. Every single time Alex's back was against the wall, every single time the pressure spiked to its absolute peak and the crowd held its breath, she didn't buckle. She elevated. She found another gear and saved 5 critical breakpoints, showcasing a level of mental fortitude and emotional maturity that you simply cannot teach. That is not just talent. That is the heart of a warrior. That is pure, undeniable pusso. But the story gets even better, because when the roles reversed, when Alex had her foot firmly pressed on the throat of the Russian veteran, she showed absolutely zero mercy. Alex generated 8 breakpoint opportunities and converted 4 of them. A 50% conversion rate against a former French Open finalist on clay. She broke serve 4 separate times across just 2 sets. She identified the cracks in the veteran's armor, attacked them without a moment's hesitation, and tore the match wide open with the cold efficiency of a seasoned champion. Now let's look at the total points won, because this metric truly captures the sheer magnitude of this beatdown. A scoreline of 6-3, 6-3 might look almost routine on paper to a casual observer, but the point differential exposes the full, brutal story. Alexandra Eala won 68 total points in this match. Pavlyuchenkova won just 50. That is an 18-point gap. In the ruthless world of professional tennis, where matches are routinely decided by one net cord or one fortunate bounce, an 18-point differential over 2 sets is not a win, it's a landslide. It means Alex was not simply winning the big points. She was consistently, systematically, and completely outplaying her opponent in almost every single rally. She won 12 total games to the Russian 6, and held serve 8 times while Pavlyuchenkova managed only 5 service holds. The statistics are not just one-sided, they are almost comically lopsided. And then there's this, perhaps the most terrifying number of all for anyone who has to face Alex in the next round. In terms of maximum consecutive points won, when Pavlyuchenkova got on a roll, her best run was 5 straight points, respectable, enough to steal a game and fire up the crowd. But when Alexandra Eala caught fire, she reeled off 9 consecutive points. Back-to-back, without her opponent even registering on the scoreboard. Against a player who has stood in a Grand Slam final. When she locks into that zone, finds her rhythm, her range, and her breathing, she transforms into an unstoppable tsunami that washes away everything in its path. You could see the disbelief radiating from Pavlyuchenkova's body language. She was glancing desperately toward her coach's box, searching for answers that simply were not there. The international commentary booth went quiet. Everyone watching knew in that exact moment they were witnessing something extraordinary, a changing of the guard happening right before their eyes. Now, we keep it honest here at Viant Locks, and true champions are always analyzing, always looking for the next edge. If there is one statistic on this stat sheet that Alex and her brilliant coaching team at the Rafa Nadal Academy will circle before the next round, it is the second serve win percentage. Alex won just 37% of her second serve points today. Against the very best players in the world, a vulnerable second ball will get hunted down and put away. Without a shred of sympathy. But here is the critical context. It didn't matter today, and here is exactly why. Because her first serve was so overwhelmingly dominant, landing at 70%, that Pavlyuchenkova simply didn't get enough looks at the second ball to exploit it. Alex knew her vulnerability, protected it relentlessly, and executed a tactical game plan that maximized every strength while perfectly concealing every weakness. That is not luck. That is in-match intelligence and tactical brilliance that most players only develop over a full decade on tour. We also cannot overlook the physical dimension, because clay court tennis is a war of attrition. The thin air at altitude makes rallies brutally punishing, your lungs burn faster, the heavy clay grips your shoes, and every slide, every stop, every recovery becomes a grueling test of pure endurance. But Alex looked completely fresh from the opening point all the way to match point. All those hours grinding under the scorching Spanish sun in Mallorca have forged her into an absolute physical machine. She outran, outlasted, and outhit a woman physically renowned for her brute strength, winning 42 service points to Pavlyuchenkova's 26 and dictating the physical terms of engagement from the very first strike. So what does a 6-3, 6-3 demolition of a former Roland Garros finalist at a WTA 1000 mandatory event actually mean for the Philippines? It means absolutely everything. Alex is actively and violently tearing down the invisible walls that have kept Southeast Asian players locked out of the upper echelons of professional singles tennis for generations. This victory sends a massive shockwave through the global rankings and pushes her ever closer to that sacred top 30 threshold, the holy grail of professional tennis, where you earn seedings at Grand Slams, avoid the apex predators in the early rounds, and are recognized not as a lucky underdog but as a genuine heavyweight threat. With performances exactly like this one, that threshold is no longer a distant dream. It is simply a matter of when. To every young kid watching this back home in the Philippines, every boy and girl holding a beat-up racket on a cracked concrete court in Manila, Cebu, or Davao, dreaming of one day playing under the bright lights of a grand stadium, look closely at these numbers. Look at the 68 total points won. Look at the 4 break points ruthlessly converted. Look at the straight sets, unapologetic, undeniable victory over a player who has competed in the finals of a major. This is your absolute proof that Filipino blood can conquer the world. You do not need to be born in Europe or America to dominate this sport. You need relentless discipline, the heart of a lion, and an unshakable belief that the word impossible is nothing more than a word. The journey in Madrid is far from over. This was merely the opening statement, the warning shot fired across the bow of every remaining player in this draw. The locker room has seen the scoreline. They've studied the statistics. They know she's arrived. Her massive left-handed topspin forehand is perfectly calibrated for this high altitude. Her footwork and court coverage are immaculate. And her mentality, cold, calculated, and completely, beautifully fearless. The Philippine powerhouse has officially landed on the clay courts of Madrid, and she brought an absolute hurricane with her. Viant Locks family, the floor is yours. Flood the comments right now. Which statistic impressed you the most today? Was it the 70% first serve accuracy? The 5 break points saved under maximum pressure? Or those 9 consecutive points that shattered the Russian spirit in the second set? Let me know your boldest predictions for the next round, and most importantly, let me see that massive, unstoppable wave of Filipino pride down below. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and help push this video to every corner of the globe so the entire world understands exactly the kind of history Alexandra Eala is writing right now. Maraming salamat, mabuhay, and I'll catch you all in the next one.